Hello to all you vacation rental pioneers out there. My name's Matt Landau, and this is Unlocked, the podcast series that introduces you to the world's leading vacation rental innovators by diving deep into one single key, one specific best practice or technique that opened the door and changed the game. Bradie Beagley-Reiner, whose last name I may have totally just botched, is the best. I first met Bradie back when we filmed an episode of Sense of Place with Blue Water Vacation Homes in San Diego. And what struck me about her professional style most is that Bradie listens. She's the last person to interrupt or raise her voice. She instead prefers to save really thoughtful, meaningful ideas till the end when they really matter most. She got a first-hand view of the challenges of regulation and being a small business up against the government and the economy and seemingly the world. Bradie's one of the inner circle members who interprets things in really unbiased and objective ways. So her unlocked tactic as it relates to competition ends up being as personal as it is selfless on behalf of the industry as a whole. Here's me and Bradie. My name is Matt Landau, and this is Unlocked. Where are we sitting right now?
In your apartment in New Orleans.
My new apartment in New Orleans. This is the second podcast that I have ever recorded here, the first being our colleague Zyra. And what are we doing here in New Orleans?
We are attending the BRM Women's Summit.
And so far, so good?
So far, so great.
You liking it?
Yeah, it's great.
Good vibe.
Good vibes.
Great venue.
Yes.
And great keynote speaker coming up tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
Yeah? Who is it?
Elizabeth Gilbert. I'm a fan girl of her and her friends, Cheryl Strayed and Brene Brown.
And what do the friends do? I don't know them.
They're both authors as well.
Okay. It seems like every female friend that I know admires this Elizabeth Gilbert.
Yeah, I think she brought new ideas to the idea of being a single woman and making peace with all the things you want and your career.
Powerful.
Yeah.
What's your name?
Bradie.
I realized I forgot to do the formal introduction.
I like it that way.
And tell me a little bit about the company that you were working for when we first got to meet and hang out.
Yeah, I was working for Blue Water Vacation Homes in San Diego. Came on with them when there were 4 of us and stayed on for almost 6 years. Grew to about 15, which was a really cool process to be a part of, and got to wear a lot of hats there. So learned a lot. And
you are now in the software side of the game with
LiveRes.
LiveRes software based out of Boise.
Yeah.
But you are living
in Colorado.
How about that?
I know.
That's a thing these days. You can live one place and work another.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And so what, do you just log onto your computer each morning and sign into work?
Yep. Lots of Slack, lots of video meetings, and then just basically doing what I did at Blue Water, but for lots of different companies.
The whole virtual, like working from anywhere thing, I think is probably a whole separate podcast that we could dive into and talk about for a long time. But for this particular episode, you expressed to me something that I found really interesting about your time in San Diego, the things you had learned. And San Diego is a fairly contentious and controversial vacation rental environment, right? Mm-hmm. Brief overview of the regulatory situation?
Yeah, so fought it for several years. Blue Water was a part of Share San Diego, which was formed by other vacation rental managers to kind of fight the advocacy fight. Eventually, this past July, they banned it.
Banned short-term rentals.
Outright. Luckily, with some help, they overturned that. They decided that it was not a lawful decision that they made. And so now it will go back on the table in about 6 to 9 months.
Which is, by the way, good advice for anyone who is either in the middle of a terrible struggle or got some law passed that was totally inappropriate, that there is still, it's not over until it's over.
Yeah, for sure.
In looking back and seeing the challenges that Blue Water faced, that vacation rental professionals in San Diego faced in general, it's easy as a small business owner in the same place as another to be very protective and aggressive. And one of the things I always notice is that despite how hospitable vacation rental professionals are welcoming people into our homes, they're also kind of fierce.
Yes.
What's up with that? Natural?
Definitely natural. I think it's part of being human, fighting for what you work really hard for and keep wanting to protect that. And I think that this advocacy fight, kind of one of the biggest things that I learned from it was to fight your nature is a good thing sometimes, and to open up to see what your competitors could offer you, what insight they could offer you, what knowledge they have, because they're doing exactly what you're doing in the same market that you're doing it.
They're your neighbors.
Yeah. And what would happen if you stopped being so possessive and protective of what feels like is yours and started sharing? What if you went first?
Okay, so before we get into sharing, I want to stick with the fierce selfishness for a moment. In most environments, it sounds like in San Diego, it was a common enemy, this regulatory battle that kind of forced people to get together and rally. Otherwise, they would all be crushed.
Yes.
Is that fair?
Yep.
And in other destinations, do you notice if there's not regulatory issues, do people tend to be sort of on their own?
I think so, yeah.
And what is, short of my destination all of a sudden being faced with some sort of totally outrageous ban, share with me kind of what you have learned from all that if you got to do it all over again.
Yeah, I think the advocacy for Blue Water and Paul, the owner, and all of our team, the advocacy opened our eyes to what other information we could glean from our competitors. But I think once that door was opened, you realize that it's not just regulations or that you have to have a common enemy. I think they have information on other guests booking in your market. They have information on homeowners.
When you say other guests, like what would that look like? I'm now starting to think, in a destination where this has not just happened just yet, taking some of the things that you've learned the hard way and starting to do them now.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? Sharing my private guest data?
I think you can use discretion and you can be wise with what you're comfortable sharing. But yeah, I think so.
Like what would be some examples?
Some examples would be John Doe stayed with me, and I think that I don't want him to stay with me, but I don't want him to stay with you either. I don't want him to create a bad name for vacation rentals in this market.
So like if a guest came in and destroyed a place, currently there's no way to pass that information along,
right?
Other than maybe a bad review. So that's a great one. Okay, I love that. So I would potentially share a problematic guest. What are some other kinds of information that you, in hindsight, could see yourself sharing up front before things get crazy?
A difficult owner, someone who maybe isn't a respectful owner, who's not going to partner with you as their property manager, that if you had that information before you ever spent time investing in that owner, how would your business change? How could you be more efficient if you weren't wasting time on owners that had already been vetted by somebody else? And
is the argument there that if you are sharing that, all the vacation rental managers in the region have a higher quality because they're not dealing with the subpar owners as well?
Yeah.
Okay. I love it.
I'd like to take a quick moment to share a little vignette that I keep coming back to. And it's the vacation rental movement like a parade that's coming through town. As independent owners and managers, we can either jump in and join the action, or we can watch it pass by. And as you can hear from this conversation, joining in on the parade means innovating, adopting new technology, and doing things that haven't been done before. This podcast would not be possible without the support of Point Central, a company that epitomizes innovation. Their property automation services like smart locks and smart thermostats allow us to focus on the highest value jobs, in the process delivering a more seamless experience to the people that we work with. Head over to pointcentral.com/VRMB to learn more. That's pointcentral.com/VRMB. Thanks to the Point Central team for their leading role in our proud vacation rental parade. Now let's get back to the show.
What other kind of information would you potentially offer up in conjunction with these other local quote unquote competitors?
I think one cool thing that a Blue Water competitor started was they realized the need for security, that there had been break-ins, there had been theft, people had caught on to certain homes in certain neighborhoods being vacation rentals, which meant that sometimes they were open and all you had to do was log in and see that when their calendar was unbooked. And so...
What, as a thief?
Yeah. And so in that gap, they created a security monitoring service that was separate from their company and serviced any of their competitors, which I think is just a good act of faith of this is going to raise all the ships in our area. Like this is beneficial not only to us, but if we're pooling resources, what pain points can we resolve? How can we improve?
And what does that security service look like? Someone in a car driving around?
So that's part of it. So if you have security cameras at any of your properties, they'll monitor those for you 24/7. And then, site visits for homes that maybe are higher end or in a more obscure location so that it's maybe more a higher threat for...
That's brilliant. And if I only had 5 properties, I couldn't afford to pay someone to do just that. So it's kind of like pooling your resources, in this case, just money, right?
Yep.
In order to share in a service for everyone.
Yeah.
Cool. Amazing. Anything else that in hindsight, so far, these strike me as no-brainers?
Yeah, I think too, when you get to the more granular levels, I think if you open up that line of communication, whether that is a thread, some kind of social platform that you're sharing information, almost like Nextdoor for you and your competitors, which is like a neighborhood monitoring website, app. But if you open up that line of communication, you can share anything from, is anybody else having trouble booking Memorial Day? Are you guys seeing the same trends in occupancy that we are? And I think when you go first, when you decide, no, I'm willing to share this information, you might be surprised what you can gain in return.
That's deep.
Yeah.
And what I love about that most is that you're not suggesting people just jump straight into the full transparency relationship with the fierce competitor down the street. You're suggesting people start off with an olive branch and reaching out and saying, let's communicate because we're both small business owners in this community.
Yeah, I think it can start with something as simple as a phone call or an email. And I think the repercussions could be a lot bigger for you when you decide to be vulnerable, when you decide to open up with wisdom. I'm a classic overshare, so I've had to learn that not giving everything away isn't the best strategy. But when you decide with discretion what you're comfortable sharing, and even if it feels scary or threatening and you don't know what the outcome could be, even if someone could potentially take advantage of you, and even if they do, not everyone will, and not letting that effect close you back up to hoarding what maybe isn't really necessarily just yours. It's what someone else has shared with you. And continuing that path, what happens if you decide that you are going to open yourself up to sharing something as small as a guest name or information that could be beneficial to somebody that, sure, is competing with you, but in sharing it will make you both better at what you're doing.
So would it be fair to say that if you're doing this, it can potentially enhance the connectivity and the communication and the success of everyone as a whole? If you're not doing this, you could be opening yourself up to a pretty dangerous situation, such as regulation. If there's no kind of network or communication happening, it might be too late.
Yes, I would say so.
I'm going to try to summarize what I just learned for myself and the listeners. In hindsight, coming out of one of the most iconic and arguably controversial vacation rental destinations that is currently in the middle of a pretty intense struggle, but that has survived thanks to its persistence and its sort of teamwork. You actually see some of the things that you learn being worth implementing before the adversity even forces it to happen in the first place. And that simple things like reaching out to your nearest competitor and simply starting a little bit of communication and offering up information that could be of assistance is a huge step in the right direction. And that the perfect scenario is one in which all the stakeholders of the vacation rental community are interwoven in a way. Everyone kind of sustains one another, and getting over your fear or concern or worries about sharing personal information in that sense might be misguided. Accurate?
Yeah.
Did I miss anything?
I don't think so.
This is an important lesson.
For me, for sure. Yeah.
Do you apply that to now other destinations that you find?
I think I'm in a new role, which I certainly am encouraging every property manager that I'm speaking with to do the same, not only in their market, but across anybody that they're using the same, that they could glean information from. Because I think maybe you don't know what you don't know. And so sometimes a simple phone call or an email can give you really valuable information.
I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And to close, just a quick reminder of who made this episode possible. It's Point Central, the property automation experts of our industry. Head over to pointcentral.com/VRMB to learn more. And when you use that page, you'll become eligible for free HVAC analytics, which tells managers when the HVAC starts to misbehave before our guests get upset. This also makes property owners happy by taking care of the problem before it becomes too expensive. And if you're feeling cheerful, please also consider writing us a quick review in your podcast app. We read every single one of them, and we pass them along to our esteemed guests. This industry is growing up quickly, my friends. This industry is unlocked.